everyone, and welcome coaches of New Brunswick to our get-together this evening to shed some light onto the process of moving up in our coaching this year in 2021. Equestrian Canada has launched the new system, and we wanted to kind of break down the Greek as it is and let everyone have an idea of how to walk through that new system. And especially for the coaches out there that are involved in Rookie Rider or the rider level program or doing some prep clinics, it is mandatory this year, but we might as well help everyone transition over to the new system. So we're going to make a presentation on that this evening. I'd like to welcome our guest this evening from Capri. We have Mike King coming to us from King, Ontario, and his new colleague that actually is living in Woodstock, New Brunswick is Charity, Tetro. So welcome, and they'll be there to take some questions. If you have any questions throughout the evening, please send them on to Nancy, and she'll be able to hopefully find someone on the call that can answer those questions for you. So I'm going to turn it over to Nancy, and she is going to do the presentation and try to shed some light on this new program that we're trying to get everyone onto for this year.
Yes, ma'am. People who know me are wondering, what the hell does she know? I'm no expert, but I have done 2 training sessions with Equestrian Canada. I've worked with the PowerPoint that Ontario Equestrian has created, and I've watched their video of their presentation. And I've combed through the materials on EC's website and so on. However, I'm still not an expert, and I'm going to rely on those of you on the call who have been through the purchase process already to jump in if I'm steering people astray. I'm still admitting people here in the waiting room. So before I get our PowerPoint up and running, I'll make sure we have everybody with us that wants to join. Charity, are you a coach?
No, I'm not.
Are you a rider?
Yep. Yes.
Good. We need to hook you up with our Zone 2 people. Our Woodstock area folks are a great bunch.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to share screen, and we'll take a little look through the coach status program, as it's called these days. I'm going to speed talk through quite a lot of it. So stop me if you want clarification or something's not clear. We'll keep this conversational if we can. Admit one more. There we go. So I'm going to take kind of a W5 approach and talk about when you need a status, what the statuses are, why we have them, and so on. And start with the why. We've actually already had this discussion. Mike took us through the rationale for this program this past summer, June and July, I think, and looked at these inciting forces in some detail. Essentially, the government of Canada isn't going to fund EC unless it addresses some safe sport components. Such as ensuring a workplace free from harassment, abuse, discrimination, and so on, putting third-party harassment and abuse governance framework in place, and making sure that it's people have mandatory training on harassment and abuse. So they're starting with coaches. One of their first steps at EC was to put a slew of policies in place, and many of these have been adopted or adapted by the MBEA, and we are working with these policies as well. And EC has its independent third-party outfit ready to handle any disputes or complaints that come their way. So what is the whole EC coach status all about? Obtaining your coach status from EC essentially tells the world that you've been approved to a practice as a coach or as instructor in Canada. That whatever status you're getting from EC, you've completed mandatory training, you've met minimum safety standards, you've got adequate insurance coverage, and you've met these criteria for EC. So it's kind of a signal to the world that you're approved. Now, there are two coach statuses available from EC, either a registered coach status or a licensed coach status. And because EC rolled out this program in the spring with completely different tiers and labels for their plan, it's really been confusing for coaches to figure out where all the terminology breaks down. So essentially, a registered coach, people who would choose to purchase this status would be our self-declared coaches, people who are not certified, perhaps they're coaching candidates, or they're people who are working with coach mentors. They're not the certified people. So we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about the registered coach status because the people on this call are interested in the licensed coach status. A coach license status, that's designed for our NCCP coaches, like the majority of you folks on the line. It's also available for people with other certifications, and I'll talk to those in a second. And it's also available for now for people who don't have certification at all, but can provide evidence of 10 or more years of experience. So look at those bottom two bullets under licensed in a second. This is how I keep the terminology straight. When I think about registered, I think about being a registered voter. When you register to vote, you provide your name, you provide a little bit of proof of your citizenship and so on, but you don't have to provide any qualifications. You're just added to a list. Whereas licensed, I think about being a licensed electrician or a licensed plumber or a licensed teacher. You've gone out and gotten your education, your qualifications, and then you get an official license which shows that you are legally allowed to practice. So that's how I keep registered and licensed straight in my head. So whatever works for you. So again, the registered coach is a much cheaper option at $50. Those folks will be providing minimum standards for ethical contact. There's screening that we'll take a look at, and safe sport training has to happen. They have to provide proof of coaching insurance, and their status will expire at the end of the calendar year. The coach license is for people who have a verified significant experience. They're meeting more stringent safety and ethical standards. They've completed some kind of formal training or certification. They're providing their proof of insurance as well. They're screened to a higher level, and their status is valid for 365 days. I don't know why, but that's how it is. Any questions so far? Okay. So what do you need to acquire your coach status? And I'll probably call it coach license from here on out. For the coach license, you have to be age of majority, have your EC sport license. And this is interesting. It doesn't matter which level of sport license you buy. You can have a bronze. Your sport license is more about what you're going to do in terms of competition. So if you're not planning to compete this year, a bronze sport license will do. Both registered coaches and coach license holders will have their mandatory safe sport training, such as fostering healthy environments, concussion awareness. We'll talk about those two in a second too. And there's a difference, however, in terms of the first aid. Coach license folks need standard, which I believe is the 2-day first aid training, as opposed to the 1-day emergency training that registered coaches can have. Coach license holders have to have coach certification, but not necessarily NCCP for now. Both need proof of insurance. Both have to be screened, but you can see there's a higher level for coach license, and everybody has to acknowledge the EC policies. Now, when EC was preparing to put all of this in place, they created a matrix in terms of risk factors for people that will be registering or acquiring a license. Our non-certified coaches, our registered status holders, they are seen as EC, by EC as being supervised and more working under certified coaches. They may be supervising others, they may be directing others, they may be handling money. They'd have a limited access to vulnerable individuals, such as children. But in EC's view, they will have a lower risk level than a certified coach, a licensed coach. That's the highest level of risk because those are seen as people in a position of trust and authority on their own. They're supervising and directing others, they're handling money, and they are working with vulnerable individuals. That's the 2 levels of screening that EC has in place for those 2 categories. So there are different things that coaches need to provide to EC. Both levels have to submit an application form and a screening disclosure form, and I'll show you where those are in a bit. Both are participating in training, orientation, and monitoring. Both are providing a criminal record check. Coach license holders have to provide 2 letters of reference instead of 1. The driver's abstract thing, I'm not clear on that at all. Maybe Mike can speak to that in a bit, but apparently it's possible they could request it. And coach license holders will be asked to provide a vulnerable sector search, which is the highest level of criminal record check. Okay, this is what EC is accepting for the time being when it asks for certifications. Of course, the NCCP certified coach, and when they're talking about coach licenses, they're talking about NCCP instructors and above. So it's going to get a little murky for the general public in terms of instructors who have a coach license. That terminology is going to get a little cloudy, and it'll be the MBEA's job to do as much sort of public promo as we can to get that straight in people's minds. However, EC is also accepting people who have a Pony Club A, and I don't know if there's anyone in New Brunswick that has that. Heather too, she's not on the call. Does anybody know if we have any Pony Club A people in New Brunswick? Take that as a no. They're also accepting level 2 or higher from the Certified Horsemanship Association, the CHA. And I checked, And we have 2 people in New Brunswick that have CHA certification at a high enough level. One is Pam Sugden, who might be on the call. She has both NCCP and CHA. But there's also a lady in the Fredericton area who has several certifications from the CHA only. So she could purchase a coach license if she chooses. They'll also accept certification from the IGEQ, that's the International Group for Equestrian Qualifications. The Cantra certification, that's therapeutic riding. They'll take provincial vaulting trainer certification. They'll also accept people who have post-secondary education. So if somebody has training from Olds College in Alberta or University of Guelph, for example, that can count as certification. And they're also accepting people who can prove 10 or more years of coaching experience as long as they submit the enhanced levels of screening. Now, as you'll see in a bit, they'll accept these alternate certifications for a while. But after 5 years, everybody's going to need to be certified, whether that means NCCP certified or if they'll accept 2 or 3 of these others, I'm not clear yet. So I've mentioned you need concussion training and harassment and abuse prevention training, safe sport training. EC will accept one of a couple of options. Many of us have the NCCP Making Headway in Sport through the coach.ca locker. That's acceptable. Or you can take the EC concussion training that's available on the ECampus instead. For the harassment and abuse training, EC has the Fostering Healthy Environments on the ECampus. They'll accept the CAC's Safe Sport module, or the Respect in Sport Group's Activity Leaders module is also acceptable. All right, what do you get out of it if you purchase your coach status? So here are the list of benefits, whether you go for a registered coach or a coach license. The big one in the mind of EC and my mind is being able to document and show that you have all of this safety screening and training and safe sport and ethics training, so that your parents, your facility owners, your riders know that you carry this set of training and insurance pieces with you. Once you have acquired your registration or your license, EC will issue you a GIF of the logo that you've purchased and give you permission to use that on your website and in your social media. EC has a Find a Coach directory on its website. Registered coaches will have a basic listing. Coach licensed people will have an enhanced one. Once you go in and pay for your coach status, obtaining an EPIC background check from Sterling is free. You have access to that third-party complaint management, and you have abuse defense coverage if you purchase the coach license. That's only for the license holders, not for the registered coaches, and Mike's going to talk to us about that in a second. You also have training discounts for some of the courses on the eCampus that have a fee. And you also have eligibility to some other EC programs that will come down the pike as things go along. Okay, Mike, your turn to talk.
Okay, so let me just start by saying this. First of all, thanks for letting me speak this evening. And I will be brief because there is a lot of information here, and I can appreciate, as Nancy alluded to, that after EC's introduction, actually at the Royal Winter Fair in 2019. A lot of time has passed and a lot of questions have been asked and not a lot of answers have been given. In EC's defense, I think they felt that they were responding to the minister's requirements, as they are obliged to do, as the NSO, to really get in line with what other sports have been doing in many cases for decades. So this is long overdue, and I'll just add that support to this general idea of credentialing and so forth. So in any event, what the original package was, for those that were paying attention when EC introduced it at the Royal or early in 2020, was an embedded insurance program, effectively, that we had agreed to build into the EC license. So in those various levels that Nancy was alluding to, there was always an insurance component that included a commercial liability component, a professional liability component, and an abuse component. And when COVID hit and all of this sort of went to the side, it was obvious that when they decided to reintroduce the licensing status program, that they wanted to make sure that they were listening to some of the concerns being expressed in the community. And one of the concerns, frankly, and I have to respect this, was that folks were saying, well, I've already got insurance for coaching. I don't need it from the coach license. I want to extract that fee that's embedded in the coach license bill from EC, and that wasn't acceptable. And there was a host of reasons why that was so. So to be frank, when we sort of got down to this iteration of the license, I withdrew my professional liability and commercial general liability component so that people could choose to deal with whomever they wanted to in terms of the free market. They could go to their own broker and they could come to us, or they could go wherever they wanted, as long as they met the criteria that EC has established to have that commercial liability insurance and professional liability insurance. This component on this slide is the one piece that has been left in the coach license purposely and consciously, and is not able to be extracted. And the reason it was left in is simply that getting abuse coverage in a professional or in a sport environment is very challenging for any coach in any sport. And so we were fortunate enough to find an insuring company partner who was prepared to look at it properly and economically to give us a measure of cover. So what's embedded in the coach license, not in the registered status, but in the coach license, is what you see on the screen. It's a $25,000 policy. We know it's not a huge sum. It was never designed to be a huge sum. It's intended, frankly, and will undoubtedly provide resource for coaches who may find themselves in a situation where an abuse allegation has been made against them, keeping in mind that the terminology around abuse includes just harassment. It could be a parent of a child who takes some deference to how the coach is treating their child, yelling at them or abuse. There's so many sort of variations of what abuse means. So if an allegation was brought against a coach, they have a resource that they can call upon. It's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week legal helpline to discuss with a lawyer what the allegation may be, to then provide a defense or legal defense on behalf of the coach in response to the allegation. And frankly, if there were some sort of indemnity or payment being demanded by the claimant, that agreeably, it's not a very large sum, but there is some protection for that as well. So there's $25,000 per occurrence for each coach that is licensed. They have effectively $50,000 per term, meaning to say, in theory, if there were 2 allegations of $25,000 each made against that same coach, they would have 25,000 times 2. So that's how that's structured. We don't anticipate this to get a ton of traffic, to be frank. We're hopeful that coaches who have dedicated themselves to the profession, who have the continuing education requirements met, who have done the abuse training and the sensitivity training and all the other things that are part of that safe sport environment, that they will conduct themselves accordingly, but we're in a human being environment. Stuff happens, and so this insurance is a good backstop. The other kind of neat bonus here, and this will be the last thing I say to this, is that in addition to this specific abuse cover response, there's also a legal helpline in a broader sense, where in fact a coach can phone a free helpline and get a lawyer on the phone to ask a question about a legal matter. It could be about what should my boarding agreement say, or this is what my boarding agreement says. Is this conducive to what the legislation is in this province about the Innkeepers Act? Or it could be about a number of things that are part of business, and we certainly recognize, and I'm sure people do on the call, that small business or large business, you are professionals offering service to the general public. You're in business, and indeed there are legal issues that you should be aware of and should be sensitive to. So this provides a resource. The other thing is that if there is a disciplinary hearing or investigation launched by EC or NBEA or some other body that would be challenging your status, that there's protection for that, and that's also part of this whole cover. So it's not an incidental coverage, even though the limits of insurance are relatively low. It's actually quite broad in the responses that can be provided. Two caveats. One is that there is no coverage for prior acts. So what that means is that until you have the license in hand that is issued by EC, there's no coverage. And there's no coverage for things that may have occurred prior to that. So the example I use in these presentations is, I'm a coach, I buy my license today on January the 28th, and lo and behold, a parent alleges that I was abusive to their child in November 2020. This policy will not respond because it's prior to the policy being put in play and prior to my acquisition of the license. And all coverage, all legal actions need to be brought in Canada. So for coaches that do travel abroad, when and if you ever can do that again after COVID, then if there was an allegation made against you, that claimant would have to bring that action against you in Canada. Very simply, the reason is that the wordings in this policy, and indeed in most policies in Canada, are based on common law. When insuring companies write policy wordings, they can anticipate how courts will respond to the definitions and the descriptions of coverages provided so that they can mount defenses appropriately, as compared to other jurisdictions where that insurer may not be fully familiar with the legislation that applies to that environment. So those are two caveats. But for most of our coaches coast to coast, working abroad means working with a Canadian client who might horse show down in the United States. And so it's still an environment where even if the assertion was made that you abused them in Florida or Vermont or some other place, invariably they'd be coming home and phoning a lawyer here. So that's going to help you there. Last thing I'll say is this. Part of the application process requires the coach to prove that they have insurance, and they have to be able to show that there's commercial liability insurance and professional liability insurance. For those that are insured with our company, those two coverages are automatically provided. They always have been. So they're embedded in our program. There's a certificate of insurance that's in the application process on EC. You send that to your broker, whether it's us or someone else. They fill out the form. They send it back to you. It's now part of your submission to EC to have it done. My colleague Charity, who's in New Brunswick, has fielded a bunch of calls already, not only from New Brunswick coaches, but from others in the Maritimes who have taken it upon themselves to proceed with the license application. The turnaround time for us is very quick, and I'm saying that in full support of Charity. She's been very responsive to this, and we'll do our best to continue to be that way. So that's all I'll say for now, Nancy, and we'll come back to questions as they may arise.
Yes, perfect. I'll just wrap this part up and then we'll come back to you in case there's questions. Okay, so when do you need your coach status, be it licensed or registered? This is the timeline that EC has laid out for now. This year, 2021, you need to have your coach license if you are delivering any EC programs. And I'll talk about that in a second. Next year, 2022, you have to at least be registered in order to coach at EC competitions. In 2023, you need your license if you're going to be coaching at gold. And I've just pulled the show levels for New Brunswick. You need it for platinum too. But for bronze and silver competitions, a registered coach status will do. In 2024, they'll expect a coach license for all EC competitions. And by 2025, they're hoping to have this all wrapped up and in place, and all coaches at any EC competition will be both licensed and certified. And again, whether that means NCCP certified or one of a few on that list we looked at earlier, I do not know. I also, people have questions about how are they going to know if a coach has their license at a show, and EC says themselves they're still working on that, and that's why they've got sort of some lead time here before they work out how that policing is going to look. So for 2021, if you're an NCCP coach developer, such as Valerie or Cindy or Nicole, you're going to need your coach license. If you are a lead instructor delivering the Rookie Riders program, you'll need it. And by lead instructor, that means if you've got some candidates or coach mentees working with you, helping out your Rookie Rider program, you as the lead instructor need to have that coach license, but the people under you don't this year. If you are delivering the Learn to Ride program, or if you're a rider levels evaluator, you need your license this year. And if you're involved in coaching any of the team activities, you better have it too. So how do you acquire that status? I'm going to bump us out of this slideshow and take you through the Equestrian Canada steps to bring that up. But before I do, I just want to offer everybody an opportunity to ask Mike any questions that have come to mind.
Look how smart everybody is in New Brunswick. No questions. Don't you just love it?
Because they've all fallen asleep, one or the other.
Well, yeah, because I spoke for 10 minutes, so that's all it takes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if there are no questions, then I'll back out because I'm not applying for my status anytime soon. So.
And you've seen those steps a few times.
I have. I could probably do it in my sleep, and I'm not a coach, so there. So is there anybody out there that has a question?
Now's your chance, folks.
Going once. And listen, I will say this before I do this, again, thank you very much for letting me speak. Yeah, and I'll talk to Kathleen. I'll answer that in a sec, Kathleen. But Charity's local. She's in New Brunswick, and although I didn't give her much of a chance to speak this evening, she can be reached through email and by phone. You can phone our office, and I can connect you directly to her. So if you have questions arising from coach licensing or the status or the certificates, all those sort of things that are happening right now, please feel free to reach out to either of us, and we'll be happy to try and provide some assistance. So I did see a question there, Nancy. What was it?
Yes. Will there be any sort of incentive insurance-wise? So I'm thinking people want to know, if I buy my license, my coach license, will my professional insurance premium be a little lower?
Well, the short answer is that we already provide premium reductions, significant reductions to those that have credentials. So for those coaches on the call that are NCCP certified, they're receiving the most favorable rates that we can get, frankly, from Lloyd's of London. And our policy already includes the professional liability and the CGL. So we're not creating a premium sort of step process to try and discount it back down. It's already embedded. It's been that way, frankly, since 1998, since I designed the program. So for us, there's all kinds of incentive for coaches to continue with their professional education and maintain that status. This license piece is very important. In 2021, we haven't designed a specific discount for licensing. But frankly, in years to come, and I do anticipate this, I'm not just saying this, in 22, 23, 24, and so on, as more coaches in the community become credentialed, perhaps they achieve that license status right away as compared to, or they, perhaps an NCCP certified coach who's been not current for a couple of years, and that we know that happens a lot. People achieve status for a period of time, then they let their credential lapse. If they get that credential back and acquire their license at that time, they're certainly going to receive a very low premium. How other carriers are dealing with this, I can't answer. I won't answer. I don't know how they're managing it. All I know is that we fully support the notion of continuing ed, professional development, and these credentials, and we always have. For just to put it in quick comparison, if I'm a certified coach and I travel from barn to barn, I don't have a facility, I don't have a premises, I'm just that independent professional. At the moment in 2021, that coach pays me a whopping $300 a year for $5 million of coverage, not 2 like EC needs, $5 million, and they get the professional liability already. For that same coach that is not certified, they pay me $950. So there's quite a spread between that non-certified and certified status. That licensing component I expect in time to come, because we don't know how many coaches are going to buy into this right away, will also have an impact on trying to bring that cost down. So.
Very fair.
Good.
Super.
Mike?
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's always good. I'm
It
spending
is.
so much time in New Brunswick right now. I don't know what to, like, do I get like a New Brunswick medal or something, or like a little like, what do you get in New Brunswick? Do you get a lobster or something? What
We'll
do you
send you a ball cap with our logo on it.
There you go. I like it.
Maple syrup.
There you go. All right. Well, listen. Well, thank you all for listening to me. I appreciate it. And if there are questions that come up after the call or whatever, just you guys know how to reach me. Nancy knows. Everybody knows how to get me. So just reach out, and I'll be happy to try and help. And Charity's there as well as a resource locally. And I'm confident that as soon as COVID allows a little bit of more travel, Charity's going to be out on the road. I mean, that's the job, and she loves it. And she's a horsewoman, so it's going to be great. Okay.
Good.
Thank you so
See
much,
you guys.
Mike.
All right.
Night.
Have a good evening. Cheers.
Just sharing screen again. Okay. Here we are in not in EC. Momentito, por favor. Okay, you guys have purchased your EC stuff before. You know how to do this. Go to My EC, do your login, and sorry, it's giving me a little grief about what I can see and do. So I will log in the hard way. Okay, when you log into your My EC, this page is familiar. You can click here to start to renew your sport license as usual, or you can access the ECampus from here. The thing that's new this year is the tab for the coach status, and it just gives a quick definition for each kind. It reminds you that before you purchase, you might want to go into the ECampus and ensure your coaching records are up to date. And we'll see what that looks like in a second. If you click on the purchase button here, it takes you to exactly the same walkthrough as clicking on renew your license. So your data comes up, you're connected to your PTSO, you've got that in place. You choose your level of sport license that you want. Do you want a card? No. Are you an amateur? No. Do you wish to purchase coach registration or coach license at this time? Yes. And then it will ask for your NCCP number. And you carry on. And you select your option. The coach license is currently on for 15% off. It's on sale, so buy now. I'll make that. I'll make that selection and click next. Under the terms of and conditions, it tells you that you have 90 days to complete all the requirements. So you can go ahead and purchase your coach license without having all the pieces that you need. You've got 3 months to get that all in there. If the 90 days runs out, you just have to go back in and restart the application process. And you agree to all of those. And you decide whether you want to donate to poor old EC. I'll leave it at 0. And this is just your boilerplate sharing your information for newsletters and so on. And then you proceed to pay them, which I'm not going to do. I'm going to go back to where we started and take a look at the ECampus. What comes up is called your dashboard. And I'm just going to go to the bottom. Each of these lines drops down. And if you are a certified coach, you should have that, some of your recent courses that you've taken that would be in your coach locker that should have all been transferred over to the ECampus. I'm not signed up for any live training. I'm not signed up for any e-learning courses. My coach certifications are listed here. That all got pulled over from the locker as well. But the important thing for tonight is under licenses. When you first open this, you don't see anything. Mine happens to have coach license in this row because I put it there, and I'll show you how. When you drop down the licenses bar, click on Add More. And this is new and I don't know what it is, so I'll just blow right past it. You've got the licensed coach status. You also have the licensed coach for our non-NCCP people that have the OHA or vaulting or Cantra certifications would add this one. If you're going for your registered coach, you add that to your account by clicking. And I've already added licensed coach status. So that's why it appears back on my dashboard under licenses. Once you have that showing, click on View. This brings up a list of all the pieces that you need to provide to EC in order to fully complete your application for your coach license. And it tells you how many of the things listed under the gray bar you need. So for standard first aid, you need one of them, and I have none. So it shows that there. If you're not sure what they're talking about, you can click and there's a description of what they mean by that. Under insurance, they only need one thing, and that's your certificate of insurance. There's a description, and there's also a form. So if I click on that, it brings up a PDF, a fillable PDF that I can fill out and print or save and send that off to charity to sign and send back to me to upload. And how do I get back there from here? Uh-oh. I've got all these toolbars in my way. Okay, here we go. Gotta move this again. Okay, screening documents, you need all three. Disclosure form, and the form's right there. And you need your 2 reference letters, and there's forms that you can print out and give to whoever is going to be your reference. Once you have those documents ready, they're completed and you scan them and they're a file on your computer, you can go to upload and it will ask you to fill in some of this information, and then you can choose your file and it will take you to your device, and you can go to your fake coaching documents file and add your fake reference letter, whatever you have that you're uploading. And how did I get here? Okay, what else? Criminal record check. Vulnerable sector, record check. Again, the forms are there. Reba was asking about how it's free.
If you have those forms and you take them to the RCMP, it's free.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's free. Yeah.
What I saw somewhere, bear with me, wasn't there. I saw a link that bumped you out to EC's, it was in the Sterling website.
Sterling, yeah.
Yeah, but it was like an EC section where you could start filling things out. I'm going to dig deeper for you, Reba, and have a look to see where that was, where I saw that link.
Can't remember where the link was, but I actually did it this week and
Okay.
sent it, and yeah, there was no charge for it. But there's a separate, I think it's on the Sterling whatever website. You just have to create a username. Yeah.
Right. Yes, you have to sort of register and make a login and stuff like that. Yeah. I'll find that link because it's going to bug me. Okay, as far as concussion, you need one of the two, either the EC concussion awareness course or the Making Headway in Sport. Since I've done this one, it shows mine is completed. It should have my Headway in Sport because I've done that too, so I'm not sure why that's not there.
I think sometimes it expires, that one.
Ah, you're right.
Yeah, because mine had expired. Mine had expired. Yeah.
Okay, so I'd have to take that again for that to show up. You're right.
You don't have to take it again, no.
No, but if I wanted both.
Yeah.
I know lots of people have done due diligence and they've taken everything that was available, so that's great. And then in the ethics and abuse part, the maltreatment part, there are 3 options. The ECs, the CAC, which I've done, and the respect in sport as well. So here's the list of pieces that you need, and here's how you upload them. And let's get back to the dashboard. So you can see my coach license status is in progress, and until I have all of those pieces in this list showing as done, it's going to continue to say in progress for 90 days until it will say expired, because I probably won't get all those things done. Are there any questions about what you're seeing here on the dashboard that I can show you before I stop sharing the screen?
You can also show them at the top on the blue line where there says resources.
Yeah.
The resources, the forms are all there too. Yeah.
Right on. Maybe. Yeah. Okay. There's your certificate for insurance.
Yeah.
Your screening. Maybe it was over here.
Where did you get that?
That
Right
was
at the top of the blue line there.
under resources.
Yeah. Where you have dashboard, redeem, find a coach, and resources.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, I'm just going to scoot back to the dashboard. The e-learning, I don't know if everyone experiences this. Normally, when you go into e-learning, you have this long, beautifully illustrated page of all their courses, and I never get anything. This is as far as I can go. So I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just me. Because even non-EC members should be able to create a login and come in and look at the e-learning and pay for them.